Okay, let's dive into a case that is just a tangled mess. It all kicks off with an accusation about a stolen car, but it quickly spirals into this chaotic late-night fight. You've got these wildly conflicting stories, and honestly, figuring out what really happened, well, it all comes down to who you decide to believe. So today, we're breaking down the complex case of Ashley Higgins.
I saw red. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. These are the exact words from the accuser, Chelsea Hart, right out of the police report. It's a statement that just perfectly sums up the intense emotion, the anger that was at the absolute boiling point here. You know, right from the jump, this wasn't some calm disagreement. No, this was a flashpoint.
And that really gets to the core of this whole thing, right? You've got one argument, three main people, Chelsea Hurt, Ashley Higgins, and her husband Derek, but completely different versions of events. It is the classic he said, she said scenario. So who do you believe? How do you even begin to sort fact from fiction? As we walk through all the evidence, I want you to put on your detective hat. You be the judge here.
All right, so let's set the stage. Let's go right back to the beginning. The whole reason this night went sideways was because one person, Chelsea Hurt, was convinced her car had been stolen. And not only that, she thought she knew exactly who did it.
So the police timeline gives us the bare bones of how this all went down. At 9:27 p.m., the confrontation kicks off. Then, not even 10 minutes later, 9:36 p.m., Chelsea Hurt makes a frantic 911 call. Police track down the defendants, Ashley and Derek, around 9:52 p.m., and by 10:30, Ashley is arrested and in handcuffs. The whole thing, start to finish, just a little over an hour. It happened fast.
So here's the spark that lit the fuse. Chelsea goes up to Derek and Ashley because, in her mind, Derek stole her car and she wanted him to make it right. That's her version. But if you ask Ashley and Derek, totally different story. They told police she came at them very hostile right from the jump, just yelling and pointing fingers. So right away, we have two completely different pictures of how this all began.
Okay, let's first dig into the case against Ashley Higgins. We're going to look at what the prosecution argued, what the official charges were, and the story told by the accused.
And when you look at the grand jury indictment, you can see this was taken very, very seriously. Ashley and her husband were facing 5 different charges, a mix of felonies and misdemeanors. We're talking attempted assault, assault in the 3rd degree, and this one's a big one, unlawful use of a weapon. And the weapon they're talking about? Their pit bull. So in the eyes of the law, this was way more than just some minor argument.
At the center of Chelsea's story is her claim that Ashley physically attacked her, not just once, but 3 separate times. She told the police officer that Ashley came at her, slapped her, backed off, and then came right back to attack her again.
And this is where that unlawful use of a weapon charge comes into play. Chelsea alleged that while this assault was happening, Ashley had her dog with her and was screaming these terrifying commands at it. Things like get her and even kill her. She said the dog was lunging and she was absolutely terrified she was about to be mauled.
Now, when the medics showed up, Chelsea rated her pain at about a 5.5 to a 6 out of 10. And the responding officer backed this up with his own observations. He noted that her right elbow looked swollen compared to her left, and he could see several fresh bleeding scratch marks on her arm. So on the surface, this physical evidence seems to pretty strongly support her story of being attacked.
But then we have the defense, and they tell a completely different story. Their whole case is built around self-defense, and they point to a whole bunch of inconsistencies that they say create more than enough reasonable doubt. So let's unpack how they build their case for innocence.
Okay, now this is where things get, well, messy. The stories just don't line up at all. Look at this. Chelsea says Ashley hit her first. Ashley and Derek? No, they say Chelsea threw the first punch and hit Ashley. Then you have an independent witness, Kathleen, who says she didn't see Chelsea hit anyone. Okay, what about the number of hits? Chelsea says 3 times. Kathleen says she only saw 1 hit, and Ashley denies hitting Chelsea at all. Then, the whole weapon thing. Chelsea says she was trying to break a tree branch to defend herself from the dog. But Derek claims Chelsea actually left and came back swinging a big rock. And the witness doesn't mention a rock or a branch. It's a complete factual mess. And here's a really crucial piece of physical evidence for the defense. Remember, Chelsea had visible injuries. But the police report explicitly states that when the officers checked Ashley over, they found no marks, redness, or swelling. 0. The defense would jump all over this, arguing it's proof that Ashley wasn't the aggressor and that it actually backs up her claim that she was the one who got hit first. So remember that swollen elbow on Chelsea? Well, another little detail popped up in the police report. Turns out Chelsea told the officer she already had a pre-existing condition, tennis elbow. Now, she was adamant that the pain from the attack was 10 times worse, but you can bet the defense saw this and thought, aha, this could be an alternative explanation for the swelling.
And this brings us to a really important legal idea called causation. Basically, for the prosecution to win, they have to prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant's actions directly caused the injury. So by bringing up the tennis elbow, the defense wasn't just trying to confuse things, they were making a strategic legal argument. They were saying, hey, you can't prove that Ashley caused that swelling. It could have already been there. So the case was already a total tangled web of contradictions. But then, the defense dug up one more piece of information, this time about the accuser herself. And it was a piece of information that threatened to blow the prosecution's entire case wide open.
And here it is. This is the bombshell. According to the case files, the prosecution's star witness, the accuser Chelsea Height, was herself facing charges for initiating a false report in a totally separate case. This is huge because it goes directly to the question of her credibility, her trustworthiness.
So you have to ask, right? How does this change things? In a courtroom, a witness's reputation for being truthful is everything. Finding out that your main accuser is actually facing charges for a crime that involves dishonesty, well, that is powerful ammunition for a defense lawyer. It lets them plant that seed of doubt. Could her whole story be an exaggeration or, even worse, a complete fabrication?
So with two completely opposite stories, a mountain of conflicting testimony, and now serious questions about the accuser's credibility, the whole thing went to a jury.
So, just for a second, put yourself in that jury box. On one hand, you've got an accuser with visible injuries, but she also has these potential credibility problems. On the other hand, you have a defendant with 0 injuries who's screaming self-defense. And then there's a witness whose story doesn't really line up perfectly with anyone's. What do you do? How do you decide?
And here's what they decided. This is the official verdict from the court. The jury found Ashley Higgins guilty. But, and this is a big but, not on all the charges. They convicted her on just one single count, unlawful use of a weapon, a Class C felony. Now, what this suggests is that the jury probably had enough doubt about who hit who, but they did believe that Ashley intentionally used her dog to threaten and menace Chelsea Hurt.
So there you have it. A legal verdict was delivered. A jury made a decision. But in a case as tangled and messy as this one, does a verdict really settle the absolute truth? You've seen all the evidence now. You've heard the contradictions. So I'll leave you with this. What do you think really happened that night?